Drink Georgetown Tavern Beer, your new locally brewed domestic style lager. 4.2% alcohol. Cheap, good, local.
Here he is, Michael-Shawn Dugar. That's the Dugar Report. He's in Atlanta, Georgia. The Seahawks off their victory yesterday over the Falcons, and Dugar is here to answer all the hard-hitting questions. What the hell happened in the second half? How can a game be 6-6 and then it's an absolute runaway there in the second half? We'll talk about the offense, the defense. There's so many players on the defense to get to, special teams. I enjoyed the camera going to the special teams coach for Atlanta every single time they had a screw up, and he just looked so confused and had no idea what was going on. We'll cover it all. The Dugar Report brought to you by Georgetown Brewery, makers of Manny's Pale Ale, Bodie's Offer, Rogers Pilsner, and their new Tavern Beer Tasting Room, Beer Garden, open daily from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Visit georgetownbeer.com. Well, 10-3 matches, the wins they had last season. What was said at halftime? Because they came out in the second half and were a completely different team, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that was said was go score. Mike Macdonald told Rashid Shaheed, why don't you go take this kickoff back, and then we'll get this thing rolling. And, lo and behold, he did. Shout out to Mike Macdonald. And I don't think that was just like something he says every week and just happened to be right. You know what I mean? The Falcons they came into that game leading the NFL in kickoff return yardage allowed, like per kick. It was near 30. Now it's over 30 yards, which is bad. Like that usually gets the special teams coordinator that they kept showing fired. So that it wasn't like happenstance. I don't believe. And I think that kind of set everything off. It was a reminder that we're much better than these guys.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how these games keep getting lopsided, is the Seahawks just at some point decide, whether in the first quarter, first half, like they did against the Saints and the Commanders and the Cardinals. It's like, hey, this doesn't have to be a close game. We don't got to eke this one out because we're better. And they go and show it.
So anti-Pete Carroll, I think. And I'm not to like throw strays at Pete Carroll, but remember, like, it didn't feel like, unless I go back now and look, and you're probably going to say, no, there were more blowouts than you remember. And maybe that's the case. But it was always that you can't win the game in the first quarter, the second quarter, you win in the fourth quarter. It always kind of felt that those games were always tight or always in question in the fourth quarter. And we would always joke about, hey, it's okay to score early and take big leads, but you start looking what these guys have done this year. I think they still lead the league in point differential. So
they
it's
do,
32. Yeah. So 37-9 yesterday. They blanked Minnesota last week. I mean, you go back to that Arizona game, 44-22, Washington 38-14. New Orleans 44-13, Pittsburgh 31-17. That's not as much of a blowout at the time, we look back on it. But Mike, you just don't see these type of scores in the NFL. This doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think the difference between the Pete team is that it wasn't so much he didn't believe that you could blow a team out. They blew plenty of teams out, but I think as the defense deteriorated and was injured, he wanted to play a different style of ball that Russell felt he was too good to play in. Russell was like, let's go out here and drop 30 on him in the first quarter. And he was like, well, if I have you drop back early, that's not your game, And so there was a style conflict there. Whereas you see when he had Geno, he was like, let's come out and throw, to his, to their detriment. But that you see the philosophy change. It was more tied to the faith in the quarterback and a lack of faith in a defense. But I think Mike's teams, it was Derek Hall who mentioned to me that one of their new sayings, they have like we talked about, they have way too many of them. But one of them,
like, how many do they have? Because I've lost count.
They've got way too many, Puck. It's my job to keep count, and I have lost count. Like that, it's on me to keep a track of like how many sayings and what every acronym stands for. ACT, EAT, the mob now.
With Pete, it was just LOB. Right? Or was there anything else? I think that was just it.
Pete had some rules.
Forever.
Yeah, he had rules to the program and some sayings, and always compete and practices everything. Buy my book; they're all in there. But so coaches have sayings. It's not it feels like Mike just has a ton. Like he's like it's like going to military school. It's just, you just learn an entire new language, Mike Macdonaldisms. But one of them, Derek Hall was telling me the other day, or after last game, he was like, one of them is it doesn't have to be close. you know? And I do think that just having something that you can go back to, a statement like that, I think is where it's a little different than the Pete teams that that got him fired. At least it was just like, we can go dominate, and not because we're arrogant. And they'll all say, well, why does it have to be close? I was like, well, because we put the work in. We studied, we grinded, we made each other better in practice, and we're all playing for each other, so we can go out there and beat the snot out of whoever. And you see that in some of these plays, man. And what you see is, think about this, Buck. Think of how many times the last few weeks somebody's done something, particularly on defense, and it's been the first time this season they've done the thing. You know, this guy's first sack, this guy's first pick, this guy's first whatever. And it's like, well, how is all these guys who've been playing all year just now? You know, Derek Hall didn't get his first sack till week 12. Spoon didn't get his first sack till week 14. Somebody last year got his first pick, excuse me. Reek didn't get his first pick till week 13. How? These guys been playing all year. Because it's a selfless defense. Like, my time is coming. You know, my time is coming. And I think that takes a level of humility to play in that defense, but then it's paired with collective arrogance that can go out and kick everyone's ass.
And it's just each week there's something new with it. I mean, there's, last week is the shutout. And again, I know they're not doing this against, the top of the teams in the league, but whatever, you got to play who you got to play. But it's just every week there's something else with this defense, and we keep doing the compare game. And I'm not going to go back to the compare game and go back to 13 and those teams under Pete. Is this version of this defense is just, I mean, there's just so many good players on this defense. I mean, we talked, I think last week at great length about Leonard Williams, and we talked about Murphy. In the past we've talked about Ernest Jones. Someone that we haven't talked a lot about this year. He hasn't had a bad year. He had a really good game yesterday. Was Devin Witherspoon, maybe the most, I don't know, naturally gifted defensive player that they have on their football team. And then yesterday is the Nick Emanwari game. I mean, the guy every time I look up, I'm kind of dozing. I'll be honest with you. I was dozing in and out of that game yesterday. But every time I look up, the kid's making another play, Mike. He was all over the field. But the first Seahawks to get an interception, sack, and block a field goal in one game.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Unless Cam would have done that at some point. Or Bobby. I think Bobby blocked a kick once as well. But yeah, I mean, it's tough. Nick is really, really, really versatile. I love his game. I love Spoon's game too. You know what? Spoon is not even that complicated. What superlative to use for him? He's their smartest player. He's their smartest player. Like, you go talk to him about I love talking to him about the plays he makes or that he was involved in, because 98% of the time it's, well, based on this, I knew that they would do this, so I did this. It's very similar to talking to Sherm. They have different personalities, but their minds are very the same. I'll give you an example on Nick Emanwari's pick. He was like, well, I knew that if they put a 3-by-1 and then Kyle Pitts is the number 3, meaning the receiver closest to the quarterback, they're probably going to run a stick route because it's third and short. So I dropped back. I saw him turn around. I just beat on it, and then he tips the ball, and then you go to his interception. He's like, well, I bluffed I bluffed the blitz. We saw Kirk change the play. We knew he was then checking to a screen because they had been running screens all game. And then boom, I jump, I blow it up. I mean, it's just like it's not by chance that Spoon's making those plays. He's easily their smartest defensive player. And it shows up mostly when he makes tackles, but yesterday it was just like, now I'm around the ball.
And I think the attraction, at least for the team, for me, and this is if I go back to those teams under Pete, that defense, here I am talking about not comparing them. Now I'm comparing them in a way, but I'm not comparing them in this sense. That defense, it had these larger than life personalities on that defense. And this team does too, to a degree, but not like that. There's just this, God, it's kind of more old school. And if you're like me and you're 50 and you're old, you're like, this is how I like, you score a touchdown and you hand the ball to the referee. That's how I feel about these guys. They just are very kind of old school, very workmanlike. They kind of just do their job, and it's like, we're on to the next play. There's just not a lot of extracurricular stuff going on. They're just so dialed in defensively. And it just keeps getting better each week.
Yeah, I think the main difference is that this team doesn't have a Sherm. Because if you remove Sherm, there's a lot of personality traits that are just pretty standard among NFL players, but maybe the exception of Michael Bennett, I guess. But there are definitely quotable, outspoken, funny players on most defenses. Leonard Williams is one, for instance. He's got a nickname, Big Cat. He's got a signature dance when he does a sack, just like Mike B. He's pretty vulnerable and straightforward, talking about his history and his past, and he'll opine on the league like Mike B used to. And then there's guys who are like Cam. Honestly, Ernest Jones this week just after winning NFC Defensive Player of the Week, he was like, on Sundays, I'm not Ernest. I flip a switch. And Cam said the same exact thing. He was like, I go to a dark place, I put that visor on, and then I'm somebody else. Kobe is very similar to Earl, doesn't say much at all, but he's just a missile with cleats on, on Sundays. So it's really just they don't have a Sherm who's just like opining on everything, telling everybody on the other team that they're trash, which is okay. But I think it's fine to make the comparisons, because I was thinking about the other day. I was reading some previews to the Baltimore versus Pittsburgh game. That it was a pretty big game for both coaches. And one of the things that the columnist who wrote that was talking about is how both teams are known for defense, and that has fallen off. And they had some numbers to back that up. And I was like, what's fat? The Seahawks, Pete gave them, they're one of those teams known for defense. Like, you go talk to these kids that grew up watching the Seahawks, and they associate the Seahawks with defense, the way some people maybe closer to my age or your age would be like, I associate the Bears with defense, or the Steelers or the Ravens.
Yeah.
So I think it's very fitting that when the Seahawks do have an elite defense, you're like, man, this is like that feeling we used to have. They were just one of those teams. We just don't typically associate that with them because we're older. But I signed a book for a 22-year-old last night at the game. What he grew up with Russell Wilson. That's who I grew up with, and Pete Carroll. So I think it's I don't see any problem at all seeing elite defense and recalling, Pete's teams.
And I think it's a standard, that is being set within this organization. I mean, I would even go back even further for people that are in my I guess, age bracket. I mean, you go back into the mid 80s. I mean, this team, there's always been this misconception, I think, about this organization. They've always been bad. I mean, there was a period in the 90s where they were god awful. But I'll get to the 90s. Even in that 90s team, you could put that defense up against any defense that's ever been in the history of the organization. The 92 team was unbelievable. It was just, they're incredible players. They had a world league quarterback. It was awful. Their offense was terrible, but not their defense. I mean, they had the defensive player of the year on a team that won
2 games.
God, they win 2 games, 3 games, yeah. And even in those 80s, those teams in the 80s, they were, incredible. Secondary led by, Eugene Robinson and, they had Dave Brown back there, Paul Moyer, who's on the Seahawks broadcast. I mean, they're just a lot. Jeff Bryan and Jacob Green and Joe Nash up front. I mean, those teams, I think, if you're not old enough to remember those, you forget about how good those defenses were back in the day. And so just even going back since the kind of the inception of the franchise, this defense has always been kind of a hallmark, I think, for this organization. This is just another kind of different version of a defense that's always been playing really good here. And this one is just fun to watch because it's just guys are all over the place making plays. It's fun to kind of watch Mike Macdonald get even better and with each week and from last season. And to put even more of his fingerprints all over what they look like. I mean, to me, it's I don't know much about calls, and I'm not going to get into the weeds on the formations and what they're doing. But when I watch it as a casual fan, and I'm trying, if I were a quarterback or somebody on the other team trying to decipher what they're trying to do, I would have no idea. I mean, just the different looks and things that he gives them, it's just very confusing every time that ball is snapped.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest difference between this defense and like a Pete defense. The Pete defense is similar to what we're seeing from Houston. Houston runs about 2 coverages. They run cover 4 and man, and you just can't move the ball on them. They're probably the best defense in the league, I would say, even though Seahawks hung 27 on them, forced 4 turnovers in that game. Texans did too. But the Seahawks are just like, we're running everything. You don't know what's coming. So it's more of a confusing defense, whereas Houston's closer to those Pete teams who just line up and beat you. But you can do it, multiple ways to skin a cat. But the other thing what really stands out about Mike Macdonald is, keep this in mind when they play. Well, they don't play any more bad teams, really, quote unquote. Maybe this Colts team without Daniel Jones. But what they do is every team has something they're good at. The Seahawks just take it away.
Mm.
That's what they do. And so there's varying levels of that, but just, I mean, you look, Devontae Adams couldn't catch a ball against these guys. Justin Jefferson had 4 yards against these guys. Bijan Robinson was shut down the second half of this game. They still haven't allowed a 100-yard rusher. They'll probably shut down Jonathan Taylor next week. You got that's what I look at more so than just like, well, they beat up on a bad team. It's like, okay, well, this bad team probably does something good. It's the NFL. The Falcons, they're a great red zone team since Kirk took over. Couldn't get in the end zone yesterday, even against some of the Seahawks backups, right? That's what Mike Macdonald defense, probably the other characteristic of it that stands out to me. They take whatever your thing is and they eliminate it. It was even the Rams, when they lost, Kyron Williams, he didn't crack 100 yards. He had 70-something in the first quarter, finished with like 90. That's why I have so much faith in them, honestly, because I know if they go into a game against whoever, they got this offensive player, this O-line, this run game, whatever, I just have confidence Mike Macdonald's going to say, beat us with your left hand. And then maybe the team does that. An elite team should be able to. We just watched the Eagles do that in the Super Bowl. They were like, we'll force Jalen to throw. It was like, well, here, bombs away. So the elite teams can do that, but the Macdonald makes you have to do that. And that's special. That's stuff that carries all the way through January to me.
Let's go to the offense. Sam Darnold needed this type of game, and it didn't start off. It started off like some of these other games have been starting off for Sam Darnold. He, again, another costly interception, making a play when, probably wasn't there, could have probably ran, done something other than try to force in a ball to his rookie tight end that gets picked off. Offensive line doesn't look confident. They're giving up pressure. He looks jittery in the pocket. Again, we go back to the second half. They start off with the Shaheed, return for a touchdown, and then things just click. I think they score on 5 straight possessions, something like that afterwards, and he looks great. I mean, it's night and day, the numbers from the first half to the second half, and I think it's allowed probably everyone watching them, and then probably Sam Darnold, to kind of take a deep breath, because it had been a shaky few games for Sam Darnold.
Yeah, Puck, can I give you some stats here? Because this is fascinating. I was looking this up last night for a story that I'll have probably Tuesday morning. So Sam in EPA per dropback is 8th. He's either 8th or 9th, depending on how I change the qualifiers to include Mac Jones or not. But let's go with him at he's 8th, right? But let's do this. If I filter out, I go to True Media and I say, take out all plays that are a turnover. Where would you guess that Sam Darnold shoots up to in EPA per dropback, which is basically an efficiency stat for my non-nerds? Think of it like QBR, but better. Where would you think he shoots up to without turnovers?
I would say number 1.
Yes, correct. He is the number. Basically, the way to read that stat is, if Sam doesn't turn it over, he's the best quarterback in the league.
Perfect. Let's take all the turnovers out.
Like, legitimately, well, that speaks to how efficient he is when he does protect it, which I think is the key. That's the only thing. I've given up on the run game ever being like lethal. It just needs to be whatever. It just needs to be competent. If they have a competent run game, an elite defense, they're like 3rd in special teams EPA. They've got all the pieces. I really think, Puck, if Sam just doesn't turn it over, if you tell me Sam doesn't turn it over in January, the month of January, I would tell you, book your tickets to Santa Clara. That's it. That's the only thing that I think will hold this version of this team back is Sam. Is Sam turning it over in particular? Because when he's not, he's more efficient than Drake May, Jordan Love, Josh Allen. It's just the ball security. Now, I mean, that's a huge but it speaks to, because everybody doesn't shoot up that high when I remove turnovers. Like Geno doesn't jump up. Tua doesn't jump up. Some of these other guys who are near him in turnovers, because Sam leads the league in turnovers, by the way. But you take those plays out, he's as good as they come. It's just the ball security. That's it. So if you're wondering, anybody listening, you wondering whether you should book a ticket to Santa Clara, ask yourself, do I trust Sam to protect the ball? If the answer is yes, book the ticket now. If the answer is no, plan the Super Bowl party at your house.
What's going to be really interesting as you fast forward, to them in the playoffs is with those stats, and I'm sure they're well aware of those stats as well. Do they alter their game plan once they get into the playoffs? Do they do anything different?
I would.
Or not? Or do they just say, screw it, we got to play the same way we've been playing all season long? We can't do that.
as much as I'm a process over results guy like Mike Macdonald is, and I made fun of Pete just like the rest of us for kind of playing not to lose, playing a little scared. Sometimes the way these guys are playing, I might owe Pete an apology. They need to play Pete ball in the back half of the season for the reasons we're talking about. That protect the ball because the running backs haven't fumbled. I don't think Ken's ever lost a fumble in the NFL, and I don't think Zach has either. So you know that if you hand it off to someone that's not Jalen Milroe, and you don't have Cooper Kupp throw it, you're probably not gonna turn it over. Like, so I think that's what you got to play. That doesn't mean don't. Sam leads the league, I think, in yards per attempt. He's like 9 yards, so you can still have him air it out. That's fine. But I think this is play the Russell Wilson game. Play action, run the ball, deep shots. I think that's the game you got to play. That's what they played in the second half, for what it's worth. Yeah. They hit 2 JSN crossers, one for a touchdown. Game was over yesterday.
The best the best part about that one crosser, the guy just giving up. Just I'm not even going to try and tackle him.
That's the guy. 24, by the way, AJ Terrell, all-pro guy, hadn't given up a touchdown all year. Playing great ball all year. Plays Jackson Smith and Jigba, barbecued all night, 2 touchdowns. Like you said, just giving up on a crosser. But yeah, I think they're not going to do that, Puck, I don't think. But I would. As much as I've made fun of Pete there towards the end, I think Pete ball is the recipe for the 2025 Seahawks. Because the only thing that beats you is Sam turning it over. He threw 4 interceptions in their loss to the Rams, and they lost to the Bucks and Niners. What was the last play on the offense on each of those first 2 losses? A Sam turnover, a fumble and a pick. Just don't turn it over. Yeah. 0 turnovers, and you go to the Super Bowl. I can almost guarantee that.
Finally, we got the Rashid Shaheed game. I think it was last week or even 2 weeks ago. You and I talked a lot about this. I think coming in, it was 4 catches, 37 yards. I mean, he gets more yards in one game than he had in the previous 4, sparked him in the second half with that kickoff return that we've talked about now multiple times. They need this. This is exactly what they need is in this stretch run now, these games, which will determine whether or not they can win the West. They need that second option to JSN. And if we can get what we got, like that's a perfect 3 catches. I think it was 3 catches, 4 catches, 67 yards. That's perfect because they need that type of counterpunch in this passing game.
I wish, I don't think the Seahawks take my advice, but if they did, I would tell them, guys, that's it. You give Rashid, it was 4 for 67. You're right. He does that every week. Make sure a couple of those are on 3rd down, like they were. 2 of them moved this chain, including a 33-yarder on 3rd and 6. That's all you need from Shaheed. At least right now, while he's still on his rookie deal, you haven't paid him yet. That's it, though. You don't need because no one can guard Jax. I've seen him just barbecue a bunch of all-pro corners all year. I'm convinced. I don't need to see anything more. One guy cannot guard him. When they did the little spotlight thing of AJ Terrell's reps against him, you would think AJ was like a rookie corner. That's an all-pro guy. He was getting fried. Chris Kidd and I have already taken credit for the Shaheed game. I talked about it with you. Chris did a film breakdown of it. I wrote about it on The Athletic on like Thursday. So, and then what do you know? He comes out and has the best game. Right. I'm just going to we're taking credit already.
Did Chris at all in his breakdown of Shaheed say that maybe he's a better route runner than Steve Largent in that film breakdown? Did he mention that at all?
I don't think so, but I think he would say that about Jackson Smith and Jigba.
I'm going to go back and watch and listen to see if he had any more thoughts on that one. Well, it was a great game. Now it gets going for them because this is now the stretch that we've talked about a little bit last week, and now it gets going for them. And they need the Rams to falter. They still control their own destiny because they can beat the Rams. If they just win out, they're going to win the West and will be the number 1 seed. So they got the Colts this weekend. You mentioned it before. Next up for them, Daniel Jones is out. Feel bad for Daniel Jones. I mean, just a guy that's having a breakout year after all the issues in New York. He goes to Indianapolis, gets a second shot at it, and tears his Achilles. Now he's out for 10 months. So they get the Colts, then it's the Rams, and then they finish on the road at Panthers and at the 49ers. It's going to be a fun rest of this month of the season to see if they can pull it on out. All right, the Dugar Report, it's wrapping up. Michael-Shawn Dugar, The Athletic. Go read all of his work at theathletic.com. If you don't have a subscription, go get it. Also, check out, it's out now. They record it right after the game, late into the night, early into the morning. The Seahawks Man-to-Man podcast with our guy Chris Kidd, Michael-Shawn Dugar. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, there as well. They'll do another one on, what's the other one? It comes out on Friday, right? The film breakdown?
Yep. Exclusively on our YouTube channel as well.
Okay.
Yep, Seahawks Man to Man is the name of the channel. That's right. Where we nerd out. If you want to nerd out with us, come on over.
And the book, we got Christmas is right around the corner. Where can we find the book, the franchise story of the Seattle Seahawks?
Yeah, wherever books are sold, but also if you want a signed copy, my DMs are open on Instagram. They're also open on TikTok, or excuse me, on X, Twitter, whatever Elon's doing. Hit me up. Even if you're not in Seattle, I will make sure I get a signed copy to you. My wife and I, God bless her, we basically got a factory going at the house. The books come, we sign them, mail them out. We're all over the world. We got some going out to Sweden and the UK this week. So wherever you are, hit me up. I'll make sure you get a signed copy for you, a loved one, whoever. Just let me know.
It's a great read. Pick it up today. Thanks, Mike, and we'll talk to you next week. Appreciate it as always.
I'll be the coach if the Cougs need it, Puck. Appreciate you.
You're qualified. Go Cougs.